Hey, this is Ryan Dawson of the Anti-Neocon Report. With me today is my guest, Mick West, who's done a stellar job debunking a lot of topics. Of course, today being 9/11, we're going to be talking about 9/11 and the people obsessed with physics who think that, there must have been controlled demolition on September 11th in New York, because based on eyeballing it, the skyscrapers disappeared at free fall speed, and there's some other claims about melted steel and yada yada yada. A skyscraper housing offices for the CIA, and more importantly the Security and Exchange Commission, investigating hundreds of billions of dollars worth of corporate fraud, falling straight down in a matter of seconds, isn't something you just ignore and skip. And if you allow a fire to burn and the sprinkler systems aren't working for whatever reason, from damage or can't put it out, there is no other possibility than for it to burn down or burn out. And if half the building's on fire, it's going to burn down eventually. That building certainly was on fire. The entire southwest corner had been eaten up. But that does not mean the building fell from fire. The southwest corner is where the giant hole is, yet it falls on the east slightly first and then uniformly drops altogether. And you don't get symmetrical collapses from asymmetrical fires. Now, there were some reports that the building had fallen before it fell. And most of them cite this Jane Stanley from BBC and she's saying it's already fallen. You can see it in the background, and then about 2 minutes later it actually falls and they cut the feed. But that could also be because everyone said it's gonna fall. Oh, that exactly. New York lingo is, oh, that building's done, or you know what I mean. They say it as already happened.
It's coming down.
That's just the American English of saying, oh, that building's toast or something. It means it's going to be. It's inevitable or something. Doesn't mean it happened, and that may have been confused. News outlets again jumped the gun. The BBC report was so bad that they reported that Building 7 had fallen while Building 7 was still standing in the background of their report.
We'll probably find out more now about that from our correspondent, Jane Stanley. Jane, what more can you tell us about the Salomon Brothers building and its collapse?
Well, only really what you already know. Details are very, very sketchy. There's almost...
Sketchy indeed. Way to jump the script, guys.
As you can see behind me, the Trade Center appears to be still burning. We see
The 9/11 Commission's way of dealing with it was to not deal with it.
As you can see behind me, the Trade Center appears to be still burning. We see
Don't worry, that disastrous report was just confusion. That's why they also lost their live feed, coincidentally.
Almost sounded too far-fetched. I was wondering what it's felt like for you being in Manhattan. Well, unfortunately, I think we've lost the line with Jane Stanley in Manhattan.
Bubbles, bangles, hear how they jing-jing-a-ling-a. Bubbles,
when did they flip you? Tell me. Don't lie. Flip? Who? What?
Spangles, her heart will sing, sing-a-ling-a. Wearing baubles, bangles and beads.
And Building 7 was not hit by an airplane, but it was hit by another building.
Right, and so it was kind of a bit of a mystery as to why it collapsed, because it was
also
on fire.
An uncontrolled burn for about 7 hours. Yeah. Jet fuel, also known as kerosene, didn't weaken or melt any of the steel. The mass media claimed that rocket fuel or jet fuel got the temperatures high enough to weaken steel on the truss and have Floors collapsed one by one like pancakes on top of each other, apparently with no resistance at free fall speeds as well. But here we have a woman standing in a hole next to the truss. She's not burned. She's got a towel or some papers or rag or something she was waving around. Apparently her hair and clothing and the paper or towel that she had in her hand must have been made of the same magic fibers as the passports that didn't burn.
It doesn't mean anything. Like, I mean, what are they suggesting happened? Like, they planted why would they even need to plant a story with the media? Because
why would you need to blow it up when you can just let it burn until it falls anyway?
Well, if it,
Also in Washington, D.C., even though in New York, jet fuel could leave molten steel and metal in the basements of the building and weaken the truss to the degree to drop all their weight, the same jet fuel from the same type of airplane couldn't even burn wooden stools, plastic computers, and paper books. That must be it. Things made of paper, like passports and books, don't burn in fire, but metals do. Welcome to Bizarro World Physics.
And it's fine for people to latch onto these things and go, I have a question about that or something, but I don't know how you jump from that to, well, my physics.
Yeah.
But they're not talking about stuff like that. They're just saying there's bombs in the building, and the implication is our own government must have set it up, and it's impossible to put them all in there in this window of time, blah, blah, blah. The whole narrative has been spoon-fed from the Alex Jones type cult.
We've seen airplanes and truck bombs, but what about the other explosions higher up in the towers? If bombs were inside, how could they be set in there with so many employees working in the towers? And who did it? You can forget about security, that's a non-issue. But exactly how and where could one place charges without anyone noticing? A good place to start would be the men arrested for fake IDs that granted them access to the towers to fix sprinkler systems, upgrade internet cables, move out furniture, and work on chronically broken elevators, especially when the Israeli-owned company they claimed to work for had no authenticity. Movers bring the goods, elevator and cable mechanics set them in place, maintenance shuts down the fire prevention system. Quick three-step plan.
Any sense at all, have you heard anything even anecdotally from the cops about how many people managed to get out of the building before they collapsed?
No, absolutely not, but there's also, I don't know if it was the case now, but I do know that one of the towers had a major elevator that went all the way to the top that was malfunctioning and has been malfunctioning for at least a month. They've been having a lot of trouble with that.
A lot of these people jumped on some hoax videos where people just put random flashes in the building, and a lot of them jumped on it and said, oh, look, see, there's detonations and they're in sequence, and it was just somebody messing with them. That's all it was.
Now, according to the National Commission on Terrorist Attacks upon the United States, Flight 93 was only 20 minutes away from Washington, D.C., if it was going 580 miles an hour. The flight recorder stopped at 10:03 in the morning. That means they would have hit D.C. around 10:23 in the morning. However, had it been going back to hit Building 7 in New York, it would have hit between 10:43 and 10:46. Interestingly, at 10:45, several news outlets reported hearing a fourth explosion at the World Trade Center in the smoke.
Is just stay in your home, stay put.
And we just received word that there was a fourth explosion at the World Trade Center. We have no idea what that was, if it was related to the first two explosions, secondary explosions from the first two, or obviously other attacks.
Some sketchy information here that another explosion, a fourth explosion out the World Trade Center has gone off. One doesn't know if that's an ancillary thing because of what already happened, or an additional explosion of some kind outside of that.
Rose, we hate to interrupt you. We've just been told a fourth explosion. Now in the area of the World Trade Center, obviously neither tower is still standing. We don't know the source of this fourth explosion.
One news outlet even reported that a 50-story building had collapsed.
But at 11:15, there was another collapse or explosion following the 10:30 collapse of the second tower. And a firefighter who rushed by estimated that 50 stories went down.
Building 7 was 47 stories high. The timing fits and the size fits.
Let me explain. I fed them bullshit. Nothing. Whatchamacallit, disinformation so I could live. Keep earning on any subsistence level whatsoever. I will do nothing, Tony, nothing to put you in harm's way. All he is.
So he's not really doing a dynamic simulation. Completely different to NIST, who actually did a proper dynamic simulation. So I really don't think you can take his study very seriously. And I think if you show it to people who actually are skilled in the art, people who actually know about these type of things, they would say the same thing.
It's just common sense that if a part of the building falls into the rest of the building, there should be an effect on the part under it. I mean, you don't need to be an expert to just guess it.
Yeah.
I mean.
These are reports from eyewitnesses, survivors, firemen, police, and the FBI. This would all get a nice church-off whitewashing and be replaced by pancake theories on one extreme. The mass media claimed that rocket fuel or jet fuel got the temperatures high enough to weaken steel on the truss and have floors collapse one by one like pancakes on top of each other, apparently with no resistance at free fall speeds as well.
I should also point out the reason why it was let to burn was because a lot of firemen had already died in the collapse of the World Trade Center 1 and 2, or at least the first one. And there was a lot of chaos, and also it was hard for them to communicate with all the dust in the air, and they'd lost officers. And so they decided to pull out of Building 7 and not risk any more loss of life, and allowed it to burn.
I said, we've had such terrible loss of life. Maybe the smartest thing to do is pull it. And they made that decision to pull, and then we watched the building collapse. I'm telling you, this disinformation shit is an effective technique. It's a friggin' ace.